Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The people of southern Cameroon are poised to see their land freed from the hands of the occupational forces of La République du Cameroon and the colonial tendencies. The civil disobedience strategy instituted by Ambazonia is greatly paralyzing La République du Cameroon's run activities and institutions in Ambazonia. Just the fact that on ghost town days, which are Mondays, all public offices are locked down and all extortion points grounded is a strong signal that the fight for the restoration of the statehood of former British Southern Cameroons is forward ever and backward never. Meanwhile, Africa intelligence have made public that Ottawa will have to show a little more patience before attempting to initiate talks again about the Southern Cameroon's Amazonia War of Independence, and that the Canadian Assistant Deputy Minister for Global Affairs, Peter MacDougall, was expected in La République du Cameroon at the end of March for a pay forward. But Genocidia Yaoundé ended up cancelling the visit at the last minute. La Republic might not seem to be choosing the peace option, but the interim government is using every available opportunity to bring the British Southern Cameroons back to its statehood. Coming up next, the prime headlines.
Right here are the plans for today. Another Canadian offer rejected by La Republic to Cameroon. Biya Junta cancels yet another Canadian offer to seek ways of ending the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia War of Independence. Capo Daniel in the news again. Corrupt, controversial Capo Daniel resigns from a Gulf C. Amazonians have rights to self-determination. We are going to be taking a look at the sentencing of any Amazonia for arms deal in support of the Amazonian struggle for self-determination in US as a blessing in disguise. All right, also today, insecurity in La Republic to Cameroon. One more innocent denizen assassinated in Boya local government area. Garbage heaps makes life uncomfortable in Bamenda. And in sports, United States forward a doubtful World Cup following injury. Now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. info@abcambertv.com. Facebook, ABC Ambazonia. You can call us on 124-048-68768, www.abcambertv.com.
Reports getting to Undaunted ABC Amber TV News through Africa Intelligence has made it public that Ottawa will have to show a little more patience before attempting to initiate talks again about the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia War of Independence, and that the Canadian Assistant Deputy Minister for Global Affairs, Peter McDowell, was expected in La République du Cameroon at the end of March for a way forward. But genocidal Yaoundé ended up cancelling the visit at the last minute. Well, Africa Intelligence summarizes controversial genocidal Yaoundé moves as all known peace initiatives, including those led by the United Nations, the Catholic Church, and the regional and international governments, have either stalled or failed. Oh well, let's start here for tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. The fourth point here is that it has included the Swiss process, a behind-the-scenes move by the Geneva-based NGO Center for Humanitarian Dialogue to host a series of pre-talks, capacity-building sessions with genuine Ambazonian leaders led by the interim government. It ran aground in 2019 after the colonial La République du Cameroon's government rejected the approach. And the fifth point here is secret bilateral negotiations led primarily by the office of the colonial Yaoundé Prime Minister Joseph Diong Gute, and a group of imprisoned Amazonian leaders known as the Nera 10 also stumbled after two exploratory rounds, the result of infighting amongst Amazonian leaders and a perceived lack of goodwill within the colonial La République du Cameroon's government to make the necessary political concessions.
Well, Undaunted News underscores here that the peace loving and justice seeking people of the southern Cameroons Amazonian, whom the genocidal dictator of French Cameroons, Paul Biya, declared war in 2017 for no just reason, a war which has claimed over 45,000 innocent lives and even counting, razed down hundreds of villages and homes, sent over a million into exile as refugees, thousands in jails, are fighting to restore their statehood because in the UN Resolution 1608. It is their fundamental rights which must be achieved, come rain or shine.
Well, 2022 marked the year when La République du Cameroon showed their true intentions as to what they feel. This they showed by rejecting the Swiss-led mediation process. Rather, they initiated a monologue in Canada. Well, we will not forget, and the world will not forget too.
Oh, well, moving on. ABC Amber TV News gathered that the Hong Kong-based Capo Daniel, after feeding fat on money with Joe Ayaba and their La République du Cameroun proxy ADF, extended his resignation letter to the leader of their controversial group. In a video shared on Easter Sunday, the now former spokesperson and deputy defense chiefs of the so-called armed wing said he resigned due to divergence with the organization. In his words, he says, I think it makes it impossible for me to continue serving our liberation movement in those capacities. I think Dr. Che I thank Dr. Cho Ayaba for his trust during my time in the organization and will continue working for our liberation movement selflessly.
Well, Mr. Ngong Daniel had been a frequent user of the group's Facebook page with his podcast on the state of their struggle. ABC Amba TV News was made to understand that the divergence concerns differences regarding the internal functioning of the ADF kidnapping and ransom taking organization. It's confidential, but those are differences that have made it difficult for quote, me to carry out my functions, Capadaniel says. Asked if he is tired of the war and wants some time to rest, he said in a YouTube video, the subject of these issues do not serve any public interest, but all the cycles of AGFC are very much aware of these issues. I want to thank Dr. Cho Ayaba for the trust he had in me for allowing me to serve.
Oh, well, on Saturday, April 8, 2023, the leader of the Amazonian Governing Council, Dr. Cho Ayaba, acknowledged the resignation letter of his fellow comrade in crime, Capo Daniel, wishing him well in his future endeavors. He goes on to say, myself, the Amazonian Governing Council, that's the AGOVC, Amazonian Defense Forces, and the Amazonian people thank Comrade Capo Daniel for his great services and contribution to the organization. He says our people and our liberation are grateful. He goes on to say that Capo Daniel stood for Ambazonia, defended Ambazonia, and took a firm stand against blackmailers, scavengers, disruptors, and the Cameroon, the butchers of our people. He goes on to say, we received and accepted his letter of resignation. He served the organization and our people well when very few people could speak for Ambazonia. We wish him luck in his new activism endeavors. We have reached a critical point of divergence, and I am obliged to accept his resignation. Quite funny, you would say.
But on the other hand, Capo Daniel said he will go solo by creating a pressure group to keep his activism alive. Since the onset of the crisis that developed into an armed conflict and a full-fledged war of independence, the so-called Amazonian Governing Council, also popularly known as AGOVC, Amazonia Defense Force of Choayaba operating like a proxy to La République du Cameroon's BIR, and some members of the colonial government championed kidnappings, ransom taking, setting confusion within the ranks of the genuine Amazonian restoration fighters and killing many of its valiant fighters, such as General Chacha, General Insubu, whom we treated recently, Shoama, Ayeke, Commando, etc. As a matter of fact, this structure has been and remains an obstacle in the way of Amazonian liberation struggle. The earlier they start disintegrating, as Capo Daniel has started, the better for the liberation struggle. By their fruits, they have all been exposed.
All right. Now, this is a very important news, and I'm sure that every one of you would be definitely interested in it. This news brief calls for great concern, given that the activists are fighting a just war to restore our independence from the annexation of a colonial regime functioning out of tune with the UN Resolution 1608. And it is not for nothing that the annexationist colonial government of La Republique du Cameroon calls advocating for countries hosting Ambazonian activities and leaders to repatriate them to La Republique du Cameroon for trials have been largely ignored even up until date. While information reaching Undaunted, ABC Amba TV says Wilson Nuyila Tita, a U.S. resident of the Ambazonian extraction, has been slammed with a 63-month jail term in a federal prison by a U.S. court.
Well, U.S. District Judge Richard D. Bennett, April 5th, 2023, sentenced Wilson Nuyila Tita to 63 months in federal prison for transporting and smuggling firearms and ammunition from the United States to aid Amazonian restoration fighters fighting for their independence. The annexationist French-dominated La République du Cameroon, Wilson Tita, age 47, was found guilty of those charges on May 6, 2022, along with co-defendants Eric Frungi, 42, and Wilson Che Fungu, 41, after a two-week trial. Eric Frungi was earlier sentenced to a 5-year jail term on March 21st. In handing down the sentence, the court relied on the evidences before it said those weapons were trafficked through neighboring Nigeria before being handed over to restoration forces fighting La République du Cameroon colonial occupier government forces in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia between November 2017 and July 2019.
Well, the judge added that Teacher and his co-conspirators raised funds for the purchase of firearms, ammunition, reloading materials, and other equipment. You all know that's propaganda. Now, for shipment overseas to the freedom fighters fighting the annexationist colonial government of La République du Cameroon. But the US, being a law-abiding country, knows that a people unjustly occupied, suppressed, oppressed, subjugated, annihilated are people who are being killed in their tens and thousands, their women raped, their girls raped, maimed unjustly, jailed without trial. Should we even talk about extortions as well? They have a right to self determination. This is why the peace loving and justice seeking people of the southern Cameroons, Amazonia, on whom the genocidal dictator of French Cameroons, President Paul Biya, declared war in 2017 for no just cause, for no just cause reason. A war that has claimed over 45,000 innocent lives and counted razed houses, razed down hundreds of villages and homes, people sent out of their homes, over a million into exiles as refugees, thousands in jails. Should we keep on talking about this? They are only fighting to restore their statehood, which was recognized in the UN Resolution 1608. If you agree with me, you would say that it is their fundamental rights which must be achieved through self defense. Now that the world and even the UN is complicit in this crisis that metamorphosed into an armed conflict and a genocidal war, what should the people do? Keep quiet and watch their people being killed?
Well, it is accurate that every people have a right to self-determination from the international law. Self-determination denotes the legal right of people to decide their own destiny in the international order. Self-determination is a core principle of international law arising from customary international law, but also recognized as a general principle of law and enshrined in a number of international treaties. For instance, self-determination is protected in the United Nations Charter and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights as a right of all peoples. The scope and purpose of the principle of self determination has evolved significantly in the 20th century. In the early 19th, international support grew for the right of all people to self determination, and this led to successful secessionist movements during and after World War One and World War Two, and laid the groundwork for decolonization in the 1960s.
Well, another point to note here is that the interim government cannot be part of any illegal deal to start with. To this story, there is only an allegation, and the interim government is doing its best to defend her people. They were only indicted for an allegation, no sentencing yet. That is what we want to also make clear here. Now, the US supports the Amazonian movement, and just last week, the government of Maryland, the local government in Maryland, ratified our document, renewed our protection name. So, all of these are just propaganda from La Republic to Cameroon to cause fear and trembling. But I'm sure the people know better right about now, and they will stand for what they believe in until freedom and independence is given.
Now, on to our next report for tonight, the insecurity in La Republic du Cameroon. Well, we have learned this sad news that one Melvis, a University of Boya graduate who was operating a coal box as a way of making ends meet, was shot dead last weekend in the night of Saturday, breaking Sunday in Boya local government area, Southern Zone. Well, the sad news continues that Bisona was robbed of all her daily earnings by her attackers before being shot. And our sources add that the incident took place at her mobile money kiosk, that is her business premises situated at Mayor Street in Boya.
An eyewitness told ABC Amber TV that this girl has just been shot dead by thieves that evening. She operates a mobile money kiosk at Mayor Street, Boyer. She was rushed to the hospital but couldn't make it. The body of Bisona has been deposited at the Boyer Hospital mortuary. The identities of her killers remains unknown as they succeeded in getting away with the murder. ABC Amber TV notes that with dismay that this is just a death, one death too many in recent times in the Amazonian state capital, Buea, where several call box operators have been victims of robberies, and Bisona is the first to have been killed in the process. This has been happening to several agents as well.
Well, men of the underworld monitor you well and attack you either at home or when leaving the kiosk. Bisona was a graduate of the University of Boya with a BSc in geology and minor in petroleum technology. Other Boya University students were recently whisked off to of their hotel and killed in broad daylight by a notorious La Republique du Cameroon soldier who goes by the nickname Moja Moja. This report was brought to you under the watchful eyes of the colonial La Republique du Cameroon administrators in Boya local government area.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. info@abcambertv.com. Facebook ABC Ambazonia. You can call us on 124-048-68768. www.abcambertv.com. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Well, moving on, waste management is an issue of concern in the restive town of Bamenda within the premise of the ongoing conflict. It is commonplace to see a pile of the heap at major road junctions and marketplaces. Though the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia in some areas have mobilized themselves in the name of what they call community work. At the Interincom neighborhood in Bamenda, two garbage heaps are conspicuously and prominent in dishing out flies and a stench to the residents and those just passing.
Well, one of the heaps was at the entrance to Alpha Royal Clinic, and the other is the Intericon Market Junction. Inhabitants of these at the entrance to Alpha Royal Clinic cleared with a notice station there as a warning for anyone not to dump dirt there again. Well, this is an example for others at different localities within Amazonia to copy. It is now evident that the development and protection of Amazonia remains an affair of Amazonia. Thus, Amazonians must sit up and start manning their affairs. The responsibility to free the streets and road junctions of dirt was the responsibility of the colonial Bamenda City Council and the in-house slave mayor Paul Achombong. With all the deployed occupational forces, they are still accusing insecurity of failing to do their task. This is a big blow to the occupational forces of La Republic du Cameroon, who keep claiming that they are still in control of affairs in Amazonia, an evidence of the fear they have for the Amazonian restoration forces. How come La Republic claims to be in charge, yet her services are not operational? How come?
The polluted air around the entire market sends a strong message that all is not well. The stench around this area emanates from the garbage heap beside the market. Business persons around the area cannot even remember the last time waste management services visited the area to carry out their duties. Despite the terrible smell from the heap, businesses are still going on as usual. Well, Undaunted spoke to one lady who sells fruits beside the heap to find out how she is coping with the smell. This is her response.
Well, in her response, she said, "To be honest, if I had another alternative, I wouldn't have been here. Besides these heaps and the tons of flies that parade this area, I have tried getting another business place away from here, but in vain. Downplaying my business as many of my customers can support the stench. I am willing to contribute my quota for the garbage to be removed, but nobody is taking the initiative." This is a lady who voted for anonymity, explaining. 200 from the Intaricon market area was another refuse dump site at the Alpha Royal Clinic entrance beside the Jehovah's Witness building. Undaunted realized the garbage heap that was there some 4 days ago is no longer there.
Well, report says the inhabitants of that mobilized resources and provided equally the manpower for the heap to be cleared. Visiting the place today, Monday, April 10th, the spot was clean with an injunction prohibiting the throwing of waste there again. Before now, one business person, as reported, took the contract from the Colonial Bamenda City Council to manage the waste. He stopped because the council couldn't pay for his services as per the terms of the contract anymore. Well, Undaunted, therefore, is calling on Amazonian of the different zones and quarters to mobilize on how to manage their waste for a clean and healthy environment. Now, this is important because it is going to help every other person avoid any health risk.
All right, moving on, we have this interesting report: the resilience of Amazonians. The people of southern Cameroons are poised to see their land freed from the hands of the occupational forces of La Republique du Cameroon. The civil disobedience strategy instituted by Amazonia is greatly paralyzing La Republic run activities and institutions in Amazonia. Just the fact that on ghost town days, on Mondays, all public offices are locked down and all extortion points grounded is a strong signal that the fight for the restoration of the statehood of former British Southern Cameroons is forward ever and backward never. Now, why can La Republic du Cameroon not read the handwriting on the wall?
Well, today, Monday, April 10th, 2023, the ghosts are very much present on the streets in Amazonia and most especially Bamenda. Well, Undaunted had a tour around the town. The streets are void of commercial bikes, vehicles, and even private mobility mechanisms. Only a few people are on the empty streets as due respect of Monday ghost towns is an issue for everyone. Taking a look at the few on the streets, they are either going to the farms or for sports, evidenced by the farm tools that they carry.
Well, Undaunted noted that those shops and public services institutions are all locked. There are some roadside and quarter businesses operational in a bid to supply the people with basic items, meaning even in ghost towns, households can still get some stuff to keep life going with ease. Sports groups have the highest turnouts, but on Mondays, many quarter developments come together and are rescheduled for Mondays. It is now a day for all in Amazonia to have a better rest with a cool head. Mondays are unique as none in having is having work pressure of any kind.
While the weight of Monday's ghost town is heavily on the Colonial La Republic de Cameroon authorities in Amazonia and, of course, the activities. Going by this, the purpose of the institution for the Monday ghost town is bearing fruits. Amazonians are very much comfortable with the Monday ghost town and have readjusted their activities for this day to remain sacred.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Now, in West Africa, Nigeria, we're going to take our time to read through most part of this letter from Chimamanda Adichie to President Joe Biden, which has her own point of view of the February 25th Nigerian presidential elections that has caused series of reactions from a lot of persons and has put the internet in a little bit of heat. But first, who is Chimamanda Adichie? Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a Nigerian born in September 15, 1977, Enugu, Nigeria. A prolific writer whose second novel, Half of a Yellow Sun, 2006, gained international acclaim for its depiction of the devastation caused by the Nigerian Civil War. Her novels, short stories, and nonfiction explore the intersections of identity. Notable works from her include Americana, For Love of Biafra, Half of a Yellow Sun, Notes on Grief, Purple Hibiscus, The Thing Around Your Neck, We Should All Be Feminists, and many more.
While we're taking a look at the letter Chimamanda Adichie, she titles it Nigeria's Hollow Democracy. Why is America congratulating the winner of these disastrous elections? Well, it starts with Dear President Biden, something remarkable happened on the morning of 25th of February, the day of the Nigerian presidential election. Many Nigerians went out to vote, holding in their hearts a new sense of trust, cautious trust, but still trust. Since the end of military rule in 1999, Nigerians have had little confidence in elections. To vote in a presidential election was to brace yourself for the inevitable aftermath, the fraud.
Well, in this long episode from Chimamanda to President Biden, she says elections would be rigged because elections were always rigged. The question was how badly. Sometimes voting felt like an inconsequential gesture as predetermined winners were announced. A law passed last year, the 2022 Electoral Act, changed everything. It gave legal backing to the electronic accreditation of voters and the electronic transmission of results in a process determined by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). In a letter, Chimamanda Adichie further spoke on the chair of the commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, assuring Nigerians that votes would be counted in the presence of voters and recorded in a result sheet, and that a photo of the signed sheet would immediately be uploaded to a secure server. But rumors circulated about the commission not keeping its word.
Well, the profound writer, in her letter to Biden, stated that if results were uploaded right after voting was concluded, then the ruling party, the All Progressive Congress, the APC, which has been in power since 2015, would have no opportunity for manipulation. Technology would redeem Nigeria's democracy. Results would no longer feature more votes than voters. Nigerians would no longer have their leaders chosen for them. Elections would finally capture the true voice of the people, fostering trust and hope. Well, according to her, she says by the evening of February 25th, 2023, that trust had dissipated, she wrote. She stated series of irregularities and violence that went on throughout the nation Nigeria on that fateful day, saying no one was surprised when, by the morning of the 26th, social media became flooded with evidence of falsification and replacement of original figures, which was done in a shabby manner that resulted or that insulted the intelligence of Nigerians. Well, it is ironic that many images of altered result sheets showed votes overwhelmingly being transferred from one party, which is the Labour Party, to the APC. According to her, she says Nigerian democracy had long been a two party structure. Power alternated between the APC and the People's Democratic Party, which was until this year when the Labour Party, led by Peter Obi, became a third force. She says Obi was different. He seemed honest and accessible, and his vision of anti corruption and self sufficiency gave rise to a movement of supporters who called themselves obedient. Unusually large, enthusiastic crowds turned up for his rallies.
While explaining in her letter what the Nigerian presidential elections was like, she mentioned that as vote counting began at INEC, representatives of different political parties, except for the APC, protested. There were too many discrepancies. There is no point progressing in error, Mr. Chairman. We are racing to nowhere, stating what one party spokesperson said to Yakubu Mahmood. Let us get it right before we proceed with the collation. But the INEC chair, opaque-faced and lordly, she says, refused. The counting continued swiftly until at 4:10 a.m. on March 1st, the ruling party's candidate Bola Tinubu was announced as president-elect. A subterranean silence reigned across the country. Few people celebrated. Many Nigerians were in shock. It seemed truly perplexing that, in the context of a closely contested election in a low trust society, the Electoral Commission would ignore so many glaring red flags in its rush to announce a winner. It had the power to pause vote counting, to investigate irregularities, as it would do in the governorship elections 2 weeks later, her letter read.
She continued to say rage is brewing, especially amongst young people. The discontent, the despair, the tension in the air have not been there palpable in years. She says, how surprising then to see the US State Department congratulate Tinubu on the first day of March. American intelligence surely cannot be so inept to a little homework, and they would know what is manifestly obvious to me and to many others. The process was impelled not by technical shortcoming, but by deliberate manipulation. Well, Chimamanda goes on to say an editorial in the Washington Post echoed in an oddly infantilizing tone, as though intended to mollify the simple minded, saying, and I quote, officials have asserted that technical glitches, not sabotage, were the issue. That much good came from the Nigerian election, which are worth celebrating. The electoral has the imaginative poverty, so characteristics of international coverage of African issues, no reading of the country's mood, no nuisance or texture, but its intellectual laziness, unusual in such a rigorous newspaper, is astonishing. She then asks, since when does a respected paper unequivocally ascribe to begin malfunction something that may very well be malignant just because government officials say so? There is a kind of cordial condescension in both the State Department and the Washington Post, the response to the election, that the bar for what is acceptable has been lowered, can only be read as contempt.
Well, her letter goes on to read that I hope, President Biden, that you do not personally share this cordial condescension. You have spoken of the importance of global community for democracy and the need to stand up for justice and the rule of law. A global community for democracy cannot thrive in the face of apathy from its most powerful member. Why would the United States, which prioritizes the rule of law, endorse a president elect who has emerged from an unlawful process? She asked in the letter. Compromise is an ubiquitous word in Nigeria's political landscape. It is used to mean bribed, but not but also means corrupted, and more generally, they have been compromised. Nigerians will say. So explains so much that is wrong, from infrastructure failures to unpaid pensions. Many believe that the INEC chair has been compromised, but there is no evidence of the astronomical US dollar amounts he is rumored to have received from the president elect. The extremely wealthy Tinubu is himself known to be an enthusiastic participant in the art of compromising. Some Nigerians call him a drug baron because in 1993, she says in her letter, he forfeited to the United States government 460,000 US dollars of his income that a Chicago court determined to be proceeds from heroin trafficking. Tinubu has strongly denied all charges of corruption. She says, I hope in a letter, she writes, I hope it will not surprise you, President Biden, if I argue that the American response to the Nigerian election also bears the faint taint of that word compromised, because it is so removed from the actual situation in Nigeria as to be disingenuous. Has the United States once again decided that what matters in Africa is not democracy but stability? Perhaps you could tell British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who quickly congratulated Tinubu, that an illegitimate government in a country full of frustrated youths does not portend stability.
Well, she goes on to say the battle for influence in Africa will not be won by supporting the same undemocratic processes for which China is criticized. She says this Nigerian election was supposed to be different, and the US response cannot, must not be business as usual. That is what she's trying to emphasize in the whole of the letter. Now, she says this election is also about the continent. Nigeria is a symbolic, crucial place in Africa. Lawlessness has consequences. Every day, Nigerians are coming out into the streets to protest the election. APC, uneasy about its third victory, is sounding shrill and desperate. As though still in campaign mode, it has accused the opposition party of treason, an unintelligent smear, easily disapproved and disquieting nonetheless, because false accusations are often used to justify malicious state action.
Well, in her very extensive letter to Joe Biden, she summarily said, congratulating its outcome, President Biden tarnishes America's self proclaimed commitment to democracy. Please do not give the sheen of legitimacy to an illegitimate process. The United States should be what it says it is. There is no need further explaining her rationale behind this letter. With that, she summarized. Because with as much information and detail from the letter we just read you, from Chimamanda Adichie to Joe Biden, you get the rationale behind it. But as we said, this letter from her to Joe Biden has stirred up diverse reaction in the last few days, and especially from the representatives of the Nigerian political party slightly attacked in the letter.
Well, here we have a spokesperson for the All Progressive Congress President's Campaign Council, Bayo Onanuga, describing her letter as fiction, which is said was inspired by the monumental loss of her tribesman Peter Obi. Well, Onanuga, who has been critical of dissent voices against the election, urged President Joe Biden of the United States of America to trash the letter once it gets to his desk. The former managing director of the news agency of Nigeria said this on Friday in a post on Twitter. He says, Dear President Joe Biden, please just trash the open letter by Chimamanda in Nigeria's election once it gets to your desk. She wrote fiction inspired by the monumental loss of her tribesman, Peter Obi. We can't help that, but notice the use of the word tribesman, one too commonly used by most corrupt governments. is a bid to divide and rule. Is tribalism. Else, why do these leaders make the injustice done to democracy in Nigeria more about tribalism than what it is, really?
Well, following suit, we also have the chief spokesperson for the Bola Tinubu Presidential Campaign Council, PCC, Festus Keyamo San, in an article described Adichie's letter as, quote, petty and accused her of being a, quote, bitter supporter of sore losers, posing as concerned citizens, but in reality actuated by ethnic politics, he says. He also claimed that Adichie's letter lacked credibility, stating that it would not be considered worthy enough for the attention of even a stenographer to an undersecretary in the US. But then you could already see the commotion it has caused in the last few days. And adding to his lash out at the DJ, he conclusively said the letter was reflective of a pathetic colonial mentality, quote, and accused the DJ of seeking validation from a foreign power. Well, you've heard these APC's representatives, and you've heard the letter from Chimamanda Adichie, one we read through in detail, and we wonder if everyone else reacting to it really read in detail too. There you have the reaction of the APC spokesperson. There are other extreme comments and reactions from the Nigerian's ruling party reps that we think are rather too brash and without much logic to bring to light.
Well, on the flip side, we have Labour Party reps respond to Chimamanda's letter to Biden as well. Valentine Uzbo, the special advisor to Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, and the immediate past president and chief executive officer of the Transnational Corporation of Nigeria (PLC), praised Adichie for writing the letter, insisting that lawlessness has consequences. He wrote, lawlessness has consequences. Nigeria's literary superstar Chimamanda speaks truth. Well, he tagged all the necessary um, handles there, tagged POTUS President, tagged The Atlantic, and also tagged Chimamanda as well.
Well, in all this, we are yet to get a response from Joe Biden concerning this very critical letter addressed to him. We can't wait to see what a Democrat thinks of democracy in Africa. And now on to the foreign scene.
Well, on the other hand, Trump is still having a lot to do in his indictment. Well, he says the return of his biggest concern is the women. While the former president paid hush money to an adult film star and a Playboy model and faces looming trials over a rape allegation. In August 2015, at Trump's Tower in New York, Donald Trump met with Michael Cohen, then his lawyer and also his fixer, and David Pecker. He's freezed. It was when you were dancing, and I know the two of us are supposed to be on that screen.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, you're welcome back. Well, still on the foreign news, the former President Biden paid hush money to an adult film star and a Playboy model and faces looming trials over a rape allegation. In August 2015, at Trump's Tower in New York, Donald Trump met with Michael Cohen, then his lawyer and fixer, and David Pecker, then chief executive of the American, owner of the National Enquiry. According to the indictment of the former president unsealed in New York this week, Becker agreed to help with Trump's campaign for the Republican nomination, looking out for negative stories about Trump and then alerting Cohen.
Well, in the Donald Trump in 1997 in New York City, it felt like tentacles, the women who accused Trump of sexual misconduct. It was a catch and kill deal, a common tabloid practice in which Pecker would buy potentially damaging stories but not put them in print. Last year, however, a New York Times reporter got to the heart of the matter in a book, Confident Man: The Making of Donald Trump and the Breaking of America. Maggie Herberman says that around the same time as the meeting with Pecker and Cohen, Sam Nunberg, a political advisor, asked Trump for his biggest concern about running. Trump had a simple reply: the women.
Well, Trump now faces 34 counts, all felonies of falsifying business records with intent to conceal another crime, breaches of campaign finance laws. All the charges relate to the 130,000 US dollars Cohen paid Stormy Daniels, the adult film star and director who claims an affair Trump denies, and how Cohen was repaid 420,000 US dollars, including 50,000 US dollars for another expense. Cohen has said it was for rigged polls, another $180,000 to cover taxes, and a $16 for bonus. But the New York indictment is not the only form of legal jeopardy Trump now faces, as well as state and federal investigations of his election subversion. A federal investigation of his retention of classified records and a civil lawsuit over his business practices. He faces a civil defamation suit arising from an allegation of rape as well.
While Trump has been accused of sexual misconduct or assault by at least 26 women, one of them, the writer Jean Carroll, says Trump raped her in a department store changing room in New York in the mid 1990s. Trump denies the allegation. Carroll has sued him twice for defamation and battery. The later suit under the Adult Survivors Act, a New York law which gave alleged victims of crimes beyond the statute of limitations a year to bring civil claims. In the defamation case, trial has been delayed. The case under the Adult Survivors Act is due to go to trial on April 25th. To the New York writer Molly Jong-Fast, host of the Fast Politics podcast, there is some sense of poetic justice in Trump finally facing a legal reckoning in cases arising from his treatment of women. But Jong-Fast says, the thing I'm sort of struck by is like how much women continually are dismissed even in this situation, she says.
Well, there's so much talk about the Stormy Daniels case. There was so little talk about actually what happened there. There was also nothing about how he was married to his third wife, Melania Trump, and she had just had a child, Baron Trump, and he had his affair. He denies the affair, but the affair is pretty much documented. She says that as close to truth is in Trump's word as possible, but we are discussing the nuisance of who paid the hush money and whether or not that's a campaign contribution and whether that rises to a federal crime. Meanwhile, in a developing story, China has warned that peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and independence for Taiwan are mutually exclusive, as it has concluded 3 days of live fire drills near the self-governed island in response to Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen's recent trip to the United States.
Quote, if we want to protect peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, we must firmly oppose any form of Taiwan independence separatism. This is from Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Wang Wenbin. This is what he said at a briefing on Monday. The war games simulated strikes on Taiwan and encirclement of the island, and a state media report said dozens of planes had practiced an aerial blockade. But we will give you updates as this unfolds.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 486-8768. Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. Info at abcambertv.com. Facebook ABC Ambazonia. You can call us on 124-048-68768. www.abcambertv.com.
All right, and coming up next is sports. Mallory Swanson is a doubt for the Women's World Cup after tearing the patella tendon in her left knee. The United States forward left the field on a stretcher during Saturday's 2-0 friendly win over the Republic of Ireland in Texas.
While in basketball, the Golden State Warriors set a first quarter NBA record as the defending champions won 157-101 at the Portland Trail Blazers to clinch a playoff spot on the final day of the regular season. Gabellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Mallory Swanson, United States forward, a doubt for World Cup following injury. Mallory Swanson is a doubt for the Women's World Cup after tearing the patella tendon in her left knee. The United States forward left the field on a stretcher during Saturday's 2-0 friendly win over the Republic of Ireland in Texas after a challenge from Arifa Mannion. Swanson, 24, is her country's leading scorer this year with 7 goals in 5 games. The World Cup in Australia and New Zealand starts on 20th July. Reigning champions the US begin their defense against Vietnam in Auckland on 21st July. Swanson has returned to her NWSL club, the Chicago Red Stars, for further evaluation, and no timeline has been put on her recovery. She has been replaced by Alicia Thompson in the US squad in preparation for their second friendly against the Republic on 11th April. Victory in the first meeting was secured through goals from Emily Fox and Lindsay Horan, the result ending the Republic's 9-match unbeaten run as they prepare for their first appearance in a Women's World Cup. Basketball. NBA. Golden State Warriors set record and secure playoff spot on final day. The Golden State Warriors set a first quarter NBA record as the defending champions won 157-101 at the Portland Trail Blazers to clinch a playoff spot on the final day of the regular season. The Warriors needed a win for a top 6 finish in the Western Conference, and they scored a record 55 points in the first quarter to lead 55-27 as two-time MVP Stephen Curry finished with 26 points in 2 minutes. The Clippers secured the other remaining playoff spot. They won 119-114 at the Phoenix Suns to secure the number 5 seed and a rematch for Phoenix in the first round of the playoffs as the Suns had already secured the 4th seed. The Clippers' win left the Warriors as the 6th seed, meaning they will face the Sacramento Kings next. The Los Angeles Lakers were hoping to snatch a guaranteed playoff spot on the final day, and LeBron James scored 36 points with 8 3-pointers as they beat the Utah Jazz 128-117. But with the Clippers and Warriors both winning, they had to settle for the 7th seed in the West and a spot in the play-in tournament. The Lakers will have home advantage on Tuesday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, for whom Karl Anthony Towns scored 30 points against the New Orleans Pelicans to win 113-108 and move past the Pelicans into 8th place. All the playoff and play-in spots in the Eastern Conference had already been decided before the final day. Teams ranked 7 to 10 will compete in the play-in tournament, which features 3 games in each conference from 11th to 14th April to determine seeds 7 and 8 for the playoffs. Golf. Masters 2023. Jon Rahm wins, beating Brooks Koepka and Phil Mickelson at Augusta National. Spain's Jon Rahm kept his nerve and patience to win the first Masters, swinging an exciting final day in his favor from American Brooks Koepka. Rahm, 28, carded a 3-under 69 to finish on 12 under and win by 4 shorts, as Koepka, who led by 2 going into the final round, signed for 75. Koepka ended joint second with veteran Phil Mickelson, who shot a stunning 7-under 65 to finish 8 under. Former champion Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed were a shot further back. Defending champion Scotty Scheffler finished in a group on 4 under, along with England's US Open champion Matt Fitzpatrick, who was the highest finisher from Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Ram became the fourth Spanish player to win the Masters, and his victory poignantly came on what would have been the 66th of the legendary two-time champion Steve Ballesteros, who won in 1980 and 1983. I wasn't sure how the emotion was going to come to me until I hit the third shot on the 18th, said Ram, whose first major win came at the 2021 US Open. History of the game is a big reason why I play, and Steve is a big part of that history. For me to get it done on the 40th anniversary of his second Masters win and on his birthday was incredibly meaningful. Ram was one of the pre-tournament favorites, alongside Northern Ireland's Rory McIlroy, who missed the halfway cut, and world number 1 Scheffler, after an impressive year in the lead-up to the first men's major of the season. With 3 wins on the PGA Tour this year, plus 4 top 10 finishes in 6 previous Masters starts, Ram had the form and previous pedigree to win at Augusta, and he duly delivered. Remarkably, he started his bid on Thursday with a double bogey after a 4-putt on the first hole. After that, he barely made a wrong move. Ram showed all facets of his outstanding all-round game, particularly his relentless huge driving and naveless putting, to record an opening round of 65 and then posting scores of 69, 73, and 69. Not only did Ram win the iconic green jacket for the first time, he also returned to the world number 1 ranking, leading by 4 shots with 4 holes left to play. He maintained that advantage going into the 18th hole and could even afford to hit his final drive into the trees. The ball ended up bouncing back into play and landing 150 yards from the tee, but he retained composure to lay up and knock a sublime chip to within a few feet for an unorthodox par. It was a very unusual par, very much a safe par, in a non-purposeful way. I know he was pulling for me and it was a great Sunday, added the 28-year-old. After sinking his final putt, Ram shook his clenched fists while looking up to the sky. His family, wife Kelly, along with 2 sons, Kepa and Enoko, quickly joined him on the 18th green before he was congratulated further by friends and family. Those included compatriot Jose Maria Olazabal, another 2-time Masters champion and one of Ram's mentors, Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that sports report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at our major stories.
Along the recap of our major stories for tonight, another Canadian offer rejected by La République du Cameroon. Biya junta cancels another Canadian offer to seek ways of ending the southern Cameroon's Amazonian War of Independence. Tonight also we talked about Kipo Daniels in the news as being the controversial person he is, but choosing to resign from AGOVC. And also we talked about the right to self-determination, the sentencing of Amazonians for armed deals in support of the Amazonian struggle is more of a blessing in disguise.
Well, we looked at the insecurity in La République du Cameroon as one innocent denizen assassinated in Boya. Also today, we looked at the garbage heaps, how it has made life uncomfortable in Bamenda. The ghosts appear today as the streets of Bamenda got empty. And in sports, we told you that the United States forward a doubt for World Cup following injury. And that was it for tonight on Daunted, bringing to the news on Third Stories. On behalf of my co-anchor Steph Smart and the others, we say thank you for tuning in.
Leave you with ABC Amber TV Images. Good night and God bless you.